Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Buenos días, damas y caballeros. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sung-Hoon Kim, and I would like to invite you to the International Civil Aviation Organization's 40th Assembly SkyTalks. Over a 2-week period, we have a 68 presentation by aviation professionals for you. I would welcome you to come into ICAO SkyTalks channel on YouTube for more information. This morning, we're going to tell you about the Aircraft Registration Network, or ARN. Our presenter will be David Scorer, Technical Officer here at the Operations Safety Section of the Air Navigation Bureau. Without further ado, please welcome David Scorer. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is David Scorer. I'm an Associate Technical Officer in Operational Safety Section of A&B. That is more commonly known as OPS, so if I refer to OPS in this presentation, you'll know what I'm talking about. Within OPS, we're responsible for a number of annexes, the meaty ones being Airworthiness Annex 8 and Operation of Aircraft Annex 6. Well, sandwiched in the middle there, you'll find Registration of Aircraft, Nationality and Registration of Aircraft Annex 7, so you know why OPS is involved in what we are calling the Aircraft Registration Network. And that's the concept that I'm going to talk to you about today. So I'm going to start with an overview of the presentation. First of all, tell you what the vision is for the ARN as a whole, the driving factors, which include Article 21 of the Chicago Convention, recent developments with unmanned aircraft, and then I'll go into presenting the ARN concept and how that relates to individual states. We've developed some customized web applications for individual states to connect to the ARN, and so I'll talk more about that, and I'll give you a demonstration of a prototype that we've developed in-house. Obviously, I'll cover the benefits for the states and the benefits for the wider aviation community as a whole, and we'll wrap up with the support we're looking for from states and from the wider industry. So first of all, what is the ARN? Well, it's a network of connected individual aircraft registries, those registries that exist in all of the member states. And we'd like to connect them so that we can consolidate key information on the global fleet. Now, it's important to note that we're not just collecting data for the sake of it. What we want to do is develop these valuable interstate operability services and offer these back to the civil aviation authorities, to operators, and to other organizations in the wider community. So that's really a key point to note. It provides the foundation for these valuable services. So the driving factors behind the ARN, well, this actually goes back to Article 21 of the Chicago Convention. Now, you can see the text on the screen. I won't read it out, but the gist of it is that member states provide pertinent information of their registered aircraft to ICAO and to other member states, often on request. So that's what kicked it off. However, what we found is that there are quite low rates of provision of data to ICAO. Now, this has been investigated by the Legal Bureau here at ICAO, and we've engaged with states as to why. Now, this, of course, involves extra work, time, and effort on behalf of the state, which they don't always have, so that's one reason. However, at that time, states rightly asked, well, what does ICAO do with the data when we provide it? And the reality is, at that point in time, nothing. We were not doing anything with the data. And so really, we've learned in OPS that we really must do something beneficial with that data if we're going to collect it. And as is our responsibility in OPS, really, we're looking to enhance elements of safety and or efficiency. So that's what was the driver behind the ARN as a whole. Meanwhile, there has obviously been some considerable developments in the world of UA, unmanned aircraft. So rapid advancements in technology and rapid emergence of the numbers of drones. You can see approximately 10 to 20 million to be manufactured in the next few years. Well, we found that many states are not actually equipped with digital platforms for managing drone registrations or UA management as a whole. They still use paper-based process, or some don't have any at all. Going back a few years now, at the 39th Assembly, there was a resolution for ICAO to take a leading role in the registration and subsequent identification of UA. And so that's where this work has now dovetailed with the original work of the Aircraft Registration Network for OPS and for big metal aircraft, as we'll call them. How does that affect the ARN? Well, what we're talking about now by an aircraft is a craft that is in the air. So manned aircraft, big aircraft, passenger airliners, and then RPA and UA small drones. When it comes to recording this data, a manufacturer, a model or a series, basically whatever the type of craft, it all has those data fields, so we can have that consistency across the platforms. So why does this benefit states? Well, first of all, it's going to facilitate the automatic provision of the pertinent information to ICAO in accordance with Article 21. And that's going to remove the burden of this extra work, this time and effort on behalf of the states. It's going to be automatic. However, as I said, we're not just collecting data for the sake of it. We want to provide these valuable interstate operability services. And so this data that we collect really is the foundation data to provide those services back to the community. And then finally, we're looking to offer a free web-based system to states who don't have one. As I said, some are paper-based still, even for big metal aircraft. And that comes with various inefficiencies when an applicant has to print off a form, fill it in by hand, maybe scan it and email it back to the state civil aviation authority. So we're providing them a digital electronic process for them to manage their day-to-day registration tasks. With regards to UA in particular, well, we believe it will contribute to the overall UTM work, UAS traffic management, and how we integrate small UA into the existing airspace. Specifically with regards to state oversight, you can see there that we envision providing the ability to states to identify and contact non-owner operators, to track drones across borders if an operator goes on holiday, for example, with their personal drone, and then to ensure enforcement actions can be taken against operators as and when it's needed if established rules are infringed. To this end, we've been working with GUTMA, the Global UTM Association, and with Standards Making Authority, CTA, to ensure that the work we're doing at ICAO dovetails with industry and is consistent with where the industry as a whole is going. So the ARN concept in a very simplistic graphical format. As you can see on the left, what you have right now is individual state registries that are very siloed. They're on their own, they're standalone, they don't talk to anything or anyone else. The vision is to have these individual registries feed a centralized data set. Now, they might actually provide the data, or there might be more advanced technology solutions to how we implement this, for example, a broker in the middle. But the principle is, as you can see on the screen. For states that have existing digital processes and databases, we can work with them to integrate their data feeds. And for those that don't, as I said, we've developed in-house a custom ARN application, and we can make that available to any state. Then, of course, the valuable services that I mentioned would be provided on top of that database or access to that wider data. We're looking to provide these through what we call the Data Network for Aviation, or the DNA. I'm not going to talk more about that now, but if you'd like to know more, please see the SkyTalk video from last week, Wednesday, at this same time slot. So these custom applications I talked about, for states that do not have electronic systems for managing their day-to-day registration processes, be it for manned aircraft or UA, we have developed a standalone web application that a state can implement to manage the full end-to-end process of registration. It's available to a state at any cost, zero cost, any state, and it will, as I said, manage the full process end-to-end, not just storage of the data, so the applicant can apply online. It's based on current PDF processes that we've data mined of multiple states. All those are accessible if you visit CAA websites. So we've amalgamated the data to provide kind of the best version of what all the states have combined. However, it is important to note that that can be modified, so the demonstration you're about to see is just the first iteration. Why is it useful to states if they were to adopt this? Well, hopefully it's becoming readily apparent. First of all, it will provide an immediate turnkey solution to those states. It will save that state money on development of their own electronic system. It will eliminate the time and cost inefficiencies of current paper-based processes. And of course, as I mentioned, it will feature automatic provision of the pertinent data to ICAO so that a state can be in accordance with Article 21 of the Convention. Tick box, no extra effort required. So I'm going to walk you through a demonstration, and it's going to be in the form of screenshots rather than stepping outside this presentation. If you would like to see a more in-depth demonstration, please come and speak to us afterwards. So imagine a state has adopted our ARN application for their own state. Now, the first thing to note is that it's highly customizable, so we can work with the state to make sure it displays what you would like it to display. What you will see here is a customized interface web page for the state of Futureland for a specific drone registration website. And as you can see, as I just scroll down, there's the option for the state to customize all of this information, which is what an applicant looking to register their aircraft in the state will see on landing at the web page. So we can make this look however you would like it to look within your own state. Next, the element of customization that you might require comes down to the type of aircraft. Now, you might want a specific application to handle big metal aircraft, airliners, and another one for unmanned aircraft. That can be handled in the back end, so it's transparent to the applicant, or it can be selectable by the applicant when they start proceeding through a registration. That is up to you. Going even further, subcategories. We recognize that many states differentiate between types of drones potentially on a weight basis. So here we've simply used the terms formal and informal, but there's a subcategory customization that can be implemented here. So we can work with the state really to drill down to what your particular needs are. So once the applicant goes through that, or we go through that process with the state, whichever you choose, let's consider it from the point of view of the applicant itself. So I'm looking to register an aircraft using my state system. First and foremost, it's registering my aircraft data. Now, we're going to start with manufacturer, model, and series. The really important thing to note here is that you can see these are not free text fields. These are drop-down selectable lists. You can see if I would select the manufacturer one, I have to choose the manufacturer from a predetermined list. Now, this is really important to ensure consistency of data. What we found speaking to states is that when you allow a free text field in these areas, you get a huge variation of recorded data by the applicant itself, often upwards of 20 variations of recording the same aircraft. There'd be capital letters, lowercase letters, hyphens, numbers, spaces, that sort of stuff. And when it comes to data management, that's really inefficient and causes a lot of trouble downstream. So I'm going to step out of the screenshots just for a moment and talk to you about how we're going to address this and get this consistency. This is in the form of the CICTT taxonomy. It's a bit of a mouthful. You can see the definition on the screen there. There is a web address you can also go to read more about what they do. But essentially, that team are tasked with developing common taxonomies and definitions for aviation reporting systems. And this establishes an industry standard language to improve the quality of information storage and then information communication between interacting systems, which is, of course, key to the ARN, the network concept. So what does this mean for the ARN? Well, compliant registries, state registries that are compliant with the ARN, must store aircraft description data in accordance with this taxonomy. It's really fundamental to ensure that when we're transferring data, or at least reading data from one registry to another, that it's going to be done successfully, and that also goes for the future value-added services that will feed off this data. So ICAO intends to work with those states to enable transition of the data sets that they currently have to the taxonomy format if that's required. So going back to our demonstration here, you can see that there is also an option for the applicant if the type of aircraft I'm trying to register in my state system is not available. Right down here, cannot find my manufacturer, model, or series. We have to be able to account for this scenario if it's not been incorporated into the taxonomy at this point in time. So we're doing a body of work here to address that as well, and this will likely be as a standalone module that would be open source available to other states to integrate within their existing systems. If I can't find my manufacturer, for this example, first of all, I get the option to search for it again. We recognize there's a lot of user error here, and I might have missed it the first time around. If I still can't find it, then I get the option to view a temporary list. Now, this list is formed up of manufacturers that have been identified by the community, communicated with the taxonomy team, but not yet formalized. So they're pending incorporation into the taxonomy as it stands. If it's not in that list, then I have a free text field as the applicant, and I can enter the manufacturer that I'm talking about. Now, this functionality works exactly the same for model and series, and that's the way to communicate the data to the taxonomy team. Once it reaches that taxonomy team, it can be processed accordingly, formalized, fed back into the network, and that way the information would be available in the drop-down list of those connected registries for the next individual looking to register that aircraft. So a really key piece of foundation functionality to the ARN here. I'm really pleased to announce that last week, at the start of last week, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the South Korean MOLIT, that's the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, for technical support in developing this feature of the ARN and then in subsequent features as well after that. So we're very grateful to have their technical expertise on this project. So going back to the demonstration now, you can see I've filled in my manufacturer, model and series. I've selected it from the available options. I can then go on to additional aircraft information that's required, and these types of fields can be customized by the state as well, depending on what they want to see from an applicant. And there's even some additional fields here that cover engine information, which is not always that common on state application forms. Really the point being that a state can customize this so that they acquire the data that they would like to get hold of. Of course, there's the customer information. Now, as an applicant, I would have a profile within this system, so this sort of data would be pre-populated, and that's an efficiency improvement because, of course, when I come to register my next aircraft, all my information is there, and I'm not starting from the beginning again as I would be with a paper-based PDF form. So that's the side of the fence from the applicant. Now, of course, within the system, we need to look at how the CAA would process that. So first, of course, they'd see the full evaluation that was submitted and all the data that was presented. This is kind of similar to receiving their PDF form as they currently would. However, within the system, they'd then be able to evaluate the submission, assign registration marks, issue a certificate, issue an invoice, and all those sorts of things. The whole process is managed within the system itself. And then, of course, it's saved and stored for their records. So that's great for a standalone ARN application, and that, as I said, is often siloed currently. The strength of the network, though, is really going to come in the value-added services that we develop on top of the data that we obtain. So you can see some examples of what those services might be on the screen here. First of all, publishing sanitized statistical information, maybe making that available to states and others. That's often of great use. There's the potential to facilitate cross-border transfers of an aircraft when an aircraft comes off of one state registry and immediately onto another. With respect to unmanned aircraft, there's the potential to facilitate delegated operators, and I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. And I'll also talk a little bit more about international UA operations when a UA is registered in one state and wants to go and operate in another. There's functionality that we can implement that facilitates that as well. And there might be more, and that's why I'm here talking to you today. We'd like to engage with industry, with states, to see what else we might be able to do with this foundation data. So, first of all, the delegated UA operator functionality, I said I'd talk more about that. Consider a situation where the owner of the drone, or someone we'd refer to as the title holder, is not the same individual or entity operating the drone at that point in time, who has custody and control. So a feature for ARN connected states and for the individuals who are registered within those state systems would be the ability for them to transfer responsibility for operations between each other, from one individual or business to another. The benefits that we see for that is that the state maintains oversight of the actual operator, even if they're not the owner, the individual or the entity who's operating the vehicle at that point in time. And from an owner's perspective, they can ensure they're the ones that are not going to be held responsible by the state should that aircraft be involved in an infraction of the laws. So to put that into a mock-up for you so you can see how that might work in practice, you can see here in my state system, I am the owner of a small UA, and I'd like to transfer responsibility for operations to somebody else. I can select a time period, and when I select a time period that I'm going to transfer that responsibility, I can identify who that is. That will be done in the form of a name and an email address, and when I hit submit, a notification would go off to that individual or business's account within a connected aircraft registry connected within the ARN to notify them that somebody is looking to transfer responsibility. Now, of course, it wouldn't be automatic. That individual or entity would have to accept it, and once they do, both them and me as the owner are informed. The second example I was going to talk about was international UA operations. Now, this might be more readily obvious to many people. Consider the situation when an operator is registered in state A, but they might want to visit another state. For example, on holiday, I might be a registered owner-operator in Canada, and I'm going on holiday to the Caribbean, and I'd like to inform that state that I'm going. So the features for operators registered within ARN connected states would be to opt in to communication of important details, my important details, to all those other states that are connected to the network, so that they have prior awareness that I might be coming to operate in their state. And it goes further. I might be able to apply to an individual state, for example, for a specific permit if that state required one. The benefits that we see here is that it provides those connected states with access to what we might call an international data set. So they would be able to identify foreign registered drones. Of course, right now, if they identify a drone, they detect it using a unique ID, and they look it up in their own state registry, it's not going to be there because it's registered somewhere else. If they're connected to the ARN, they would see right away that it's registered in a different state, and they'd also see what state it was from. States might also be able to define specific requirements, as I said, in this form of this permit. So an operator would apply in advance, and that state would provide permission for a fixed duration of time, maybe. And then from an operator perspective, well, I can be more informed of individual state rules and regulations. If I had to apply for a permit, maybe that part of that process would be informing myself of the rules that apply once I'm in country. So again, just to show you a little demonstration of what we've built, here we can see international operations screen. I am the owner-operator of a small UA, and I want to inform the community of my international operations. I can select a start and end time, as you can see. And then I can choose to select multiple states from a drop-down list or an individual state if I'm just going to one state to make my information available. At this point, maybe a key piece of information that states would be interested in is local contact information whilst I'm on the ground in that state. Of course, this is essential when you register in your own state, and it's the kind of data that states would like to have so that they can maintain oversight when they're dealing with foreign operators. So I can input a local address and a local telephone number. So that's a really simple couple of examples of these features we're looking to provide on the foundation data of the ARN. It is a work in progress. So what next? We'd like the states and industry to work with us, reach out, tell us what you need, tell us what you want, to make sure that we're going to develop something that you do actually need. If you're a state and you're interested in trialing the ARN application for your own state registry activities, please reach out and we'll talk to you about maybe customizing one and running a trial. If you have any ideas for features that might be suitable within the ARN itself, please reach out as well. And for anyone else in the community industry as well, if there's anything you've seen here today that you think you can contribute to, that you'd like to guide us and help us and work in this direction for the ARN vision, we'd really love to hear from you so to make sure that we can develop a network that actually meets the needs of the community. If you're going to reach out, please either come and see us this week for those that are here, or there's an email address at the bottom of the screen there, ops@icao.int. We'd love to hear from you. That's it. Thank you for your time. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay. Well, in that case, I actually have two questions. The first one, how many years did it take to develop the aircraft registration network?
I'm afraid that question is a bit like how long is a piece of string. There are multiple elements to this. We started the concept idea maybe 2 years ago. It's obviously not something that ICAO traditionally does. We develop standards and recommended practices, but in an increasingly digital world, we need to start considering what else can we do to provide services to our stakeholders, states and operators and others. So the concept really came about, I'd say, 2 years ago, and we've made a lot of progress in that time. How much more time it's going to take to implement this and to what level it's implemented. For example, how many states join. Of course, it's not going to be 193 states immediately, and it's not going to be all the operators and owners immediately. That really is TBD. We'd like to make a lot more progress in the next year to at least have the foundation infrastructure developed.
Okay, so that leads me to my second question. I'd like you to repeat once again, how much does it cost for states to obtain this service?
So for a customized ARN application developed by ICAO, we would implement that for free. We'd just work with them to make sure it was customized to their needs.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
So if there are no more questions, I'd like to welcome you to get onto mcr@icao.int for further questions, and we'll give them to the appropriate subject matter expert. Thank you very much.
Thank you.